This is the Horse Radio Network.
I'm Helena B., and you're listening to the Equestrian Legends radio show on the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 25, and we're talking with Monty Roberts. Today we bring you a fascinating conversation with a true equestrian legend, Monty Roberts. This episode is brought to you with the kind support of Pessoa.
The name Pessoa is legendary in equestrian circles. During his phenomenally successful career as a rider, Nelson Pessoa set his sights on creating the ultimate in saddle design. Not satisfied with the perfection of balance, aesthetics, and craftsmanship, Nelson's goal was to provide riders of every level the opportunity to train and compete in a true competition-level saddle, a saddle that would be an aid to their balance and riding style while offering a comfortable fit for most any horse. Most importantly, Nelson felt that the saddle was a tool that the riders should not miss out on because of price. With these goals, the modern-day Pessoa was born and has come to encompass saddles, strap goods, horse boots, and blankets. Riders and their horses come in all shapes and sizes. Pessoa realizes this, and they are proud to introduce the new AO AMS, a saddle for everybody and every horse. Made of the finest grained English leather, the saddle features an exchange adjustable tree system, 3 AMS synthetic wool panel options, and 4 flap options. For the horse, go beyond an adjustable tree by providing the right panel depth and shape. The new Pessoa AO AMS features synthetic wool flocked panels specifically designed for particular horse conformations. All panel types are able to be further adjusted by a saddle fitter. To learn more about the Pessoa AO AMS and all of the other fine products at Pessoa, ask your local retailer or visit them online at PessoaUSA.com. That's PessoaUSA.com.
Marvin Earl Roberts, more affectionately known as Monty, is a horse trainer. Some may call him a natural horsemanship horse trainer. Through his Join Up International organization, which is actually named after the core concept of his training method, Monty Roberts believes that horses use a nonverbal language, which he calls equus, to communicate with each other and with humans. Monty believes that we humans can use this language to train our horses, to have better relationships with them, and to train ourselves and perhaps improve upon our own human relationships. Monty has authored a number of books, including his bestseller, The Man Who Listens to Horses. He was a very successful competitor, rodeo competitor. He has a degree from California Polytech in animal science. Bet a lot of you didn't know that. And he travels the world these days promoting his message of nonviolent training and communication. He has a close relationship with Queen Elizabeth, who also believes in a very humane approach to training animals, particularly horses. As I said, he's written a number of books, very successful books. He does clinics and live demonstrations all over the world. There have been documentaries on his work. The first was in 1997, which PBS did, and it was called Monty Roberts, The Real Horse Whisperer, which is absolutely fascinating. I recommend every one of our listeners to go out and find that because it was a really, really good piece. Monty's won many awards. He has an honorary doctorate in animal psychology from the University of Zurich. Among others, he also has an honorary doctorate in animal psychology from the University of Parma in Italy. So you can see that Monty he gets around. And despite the culture differences or language differences, there is a universal message of humanity and humane treatment in his technique and in his message and in his philosophy, his training philosophy. So we're going to talk to Monty today about where he came from, what's on his bucket list now, And what gets him motivated? What keeps him going every day? You'd be surprised at the answer. So sit back, relax, and let's have a conversation with Monty Roberts. Welcome to Equestrian Legends, Monty. Do you feel like a legend?
No. I feel like a ditch digger and a worker of all sorts, but ditch digging wouldn't be as fun as what I'm doing. So, no, I don't feel like a legend, but I feel like a mentor at times, and at 77, I guess that's a good feeling.
Yeah, I think you're entitled to that because you have, you know, sometimes I don't know, for me, I wonder, what am I? How am I defined? What are my contributions to this world? And, you know, being a mentor is a really nice thing to be. But you've been many things, and you've been around for a long time, but mostly you've been involved deeply. So your reach is broad, but your reach also goes very deep. That has to have an effect on the way you see yourself and maybe a responsibility that you feel. Do you feel responsible?
Oh, I do, Helene, I do. And the thing is, I am serious about this business that I feel I owe a debt of gratitude to the horses that created my career and supported my career and made my career. But not only them, it's all the horses that we have so misunderstood and are continuing to misunderstand. If you go to Morocco in the Middle East and find them tied on the side of the road around the ankle by a rope that's cut into their leg maybe months before, and has a big sore and a sore on their back and blind in one eye. I mean, it's awful what we do to this species. Not so much, I think, because we really are bad human beings or a bad species, but because we're not educated. We don't really know that horses can feel. And there are some clinicians that go around saying, well, you know, the threshold of pain for a horse is a lot less, so you can whoop on them. And some of them will even say things like one good bash is worth 100 taps. And then you have to justify that by saying that when a fly lights on a horse's side, you can watch them flick their skin. So the sensitivity is there. I mean, it's 2012. We know what their nervous system is. We know how sensitive they are. And yet we continue to just sort of black that out and just go on like they are our slave. Mm-hmm. That's the way it is. And we can do whatever we want to create a compliant individual. And it's just not true.
Well, that's an interesting term that you use, the compliant individual, because there's this lack of communication. Well, I guess it comes from a lack of understanding. So if you're not understanding the individual that is the horse, it would make it difficult to communicate with them. And if you can't communicate with them, well, you can't necessarily have a relationship with them. So do you see people out there who is it that they don't understand, or are they in various stages of this miscommunication? They don't understand, they don't know the language.
Well, I like to think that there's people out there who have not been educated and who don't understand, and I'd like to think that that's, you know, a strong majority. I don't like thinking that we just do it because it makes us feel good or something like that. I don't know if you've been on my Facebook page.
Yes.
or my website to see the footage from South America of just last year. And most horses in South America are broken still by that same method, and it's just unbelievable. And it has to be a cultural thing, because in this contest that I have on my Facebook and website, there's an audience there. And when the horse falls down, then you hear the audience go, wow, 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 and raise their fists, because it's a feeling of victory over the animal, you know? And they just don't understand. That's a cultural thing throughout their society. And then you find the kids sleeping under the streets, and you find the wives huddled in a corner. And I'm a one-man army out there trying, and I need help. We need help through Join Up International, my nonprofit, to keep these things going and to join with people that also feel the same as I do, that they have a debt to pay to these horses. And now I have a huge debt to pay to one lady that has made my whole project global and has caused me to fly about 2.5 million miles in 25 years. I have every status you can have on these crazy things they do. But this lady has influenced the world for good in horsemanship, and it is really working. Her name is Elizabeth. She happens to hold a very important status as leader of her country, the Queen of England. And she has become an outspoken advocate for my work, while there still are many, many critics who have crazy things to say, like, oh, he just chases them until they're so exhausted they'll do whatever he says, and the stress on them is awful. And they haven't read that I have done stress tests by the thousands. They haven't read that I've done science trials to see that my method is a minuscule portion of what traditional horsemanship offers the horse in terms of stress. It's disappointing in so many ways. Recently, a movie came out where a man ropes a horse by a hind leg and with a nylon rope drags the horse across the arena with a horse bigger than the other one and wrapped around the saddle horn, dragging it by a hind leg. And as I go around the world, they say, oh, he came off pretty well, you know. It's a pretty nice thing. And I go, what am I doing? Where is my work going? I don't say that's a bad guy. He thinks that's the right thing to do. But it's bad because it says you must or I'll hurt you. And any time you say you must or I'll hurt you to your children, your wife, people who work for you, I think it's not moral, it's not humane, and it's not very effective.
What is the anti-message? How would you flip that message around instead of saying you must or I'll hurt you? What would you say instead? Because it's such a simple phrase. And, in our communications with horses, with all animals, it's so simple because they don't have the same psychological baggage that humans do. So it's so stripped down. So how do you flip that phrase around to the positive? That's your
Helene,
message?
I think it's not flipping it around to the positive. It's not. Because that implies that positive reinforcement is the only way to train and negative reinforcement is bad. And that's not true. The founders of psychology named positive reinforcement an act whereby something is added to the scenario, and negative reinforcement where something is taken away. And if you're a rider, you know when you lay your leg on the side of a horse and he moves away, you stop pushing. But you've trained him to move off pressure.
Which is a negative.
That's negative reinforcement. And we all do. When we pick up the reins, we put them against the horse's mouth to say, stop. When the horse stops, we relax the reins. That's negative reinforcement. So negative reinforcement is a good thing. It's just the opposite of positive reinforcement. So I don't spin the thing around to be positive. I live by the fact that every horseman, every parent, every boss ought to sit down and make a pact with themselves that they renounce violence, where causing pain and remembering that words can hurt as much as whips can. But to create pain, force, or intimidation is wrong. And yet we live by picnic, positive instant consequences and negative instant consequences. And the negative instant consequences cannot be violent. So, like in my books, I write that we have contracts with horses too, that if you do this, then this will happen, but it's not violent. He might have to work a little more. A child might have to scrub the tiles in the shower, or mow the lawn, or whatever.
Right.
But it's bilaterally agreeable. It's already sat down and bilaterally agreed with your child and yourself that if they don't do these negative things, then they never have to do any of those prices to pay. But if they do a negative thing, they will have to pay that price. And I write about the boy that watered his horse with a water glass because he forgot to water him. And the first time I watered him because I hadn't put it in the contract. And then we had a talk, and then he forgot to water him again. So he watered him with a water glass that was provided in the tack room, but never had to touch that glass for the rest of his life if he remembered to water the horse. Now that boy is, as we are speaking today, one of the most responsible people you have ever met in your life. He's a multimillionaire. He has his own business. He has a law degree, but he retired from law very quickly because he said that he had to create falsehoods to be successful as a lawyer. And he has his own business and is one of the most, well-organized people you'll ever see. I'm not telling you that that one incident was everything in his life, but I will tell you that he was 9 years old when it happened, that he had been declared a severely impaired learner in his grammar school. I will tell you that he was in big trouble in many ways in his life at 9 years of age. And all of this turned around, and you wouldn't know him from a possible candidate for president of the United States at this point in time.
And have you met other people like this I know that you have your own children that you've raised and over 40 foster children. Through these small but many life lessons with horses, do you get to see how these lessons impact people not only as they grow older, but as they take them back to their cultures? And do you get to see the benefits of that?
Boy, do I. And I'm working now with military people returning from these conflicts with a thing they call PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I don't think it should be called that at all. I think it should be PTSI because it's an injury, not a disorder. Post-traumatic stress injury. And I'm working with a lot of them. I've worked with over 100 now, and the stories of success are unbelievable. The lady that lived in her house for 35 years after returning from Vietnam would not go outside. I spent 9 days with her, 3-day sessions in these clinics, and she left her house. She lost 30 pounds because she had ballooned up wearing nothing but jumpsuits for 35 years. And she left her house. She accompanied a Veterans Administration person and went to Los Angeles, got on an airplane, flew to Washington, D.C., did 3 speeches and got 3 standing ovations, and comes to my farm with regularity now, smiles, has lost 30, 40 pounds, and is a functioning normal individual. It's unbelievable. I have another one that was found under a bridge in Washington, D.C., Alicia Watkins, and I had her 8 days, 2 3-day sessions and a 2-day session, and she just took the tests, passed the test, and has been accepted to Harvard School of psychology. And she's going to be a psychologist. She was a university graduate before Iraq and Afghanistan pulled her in. She was in the Pentagon on 9/11 as a $90,000 a year executive, and then completely lost everything: her home, her car, her dignity. Everything was gone.
So what are the parallels then between your work with horses and work with folks who have PTSD?
Darling, if you were here with me and you could see a PTSI clinic and then see horses that we have come in from the rescue places, they just have different names. The rest is the same. It's exactly the same. And particularly with PTSD victims and with children and with wives that have been abused, it's exactly the same. And remember that when I have a PTSI victim, I have a family that's a victim too.
Right.
Because it isn't just the trooper that's been through this. When they come home, the entire family is subjected to the kinds of dysfunctional behavior that this person emulates. And then people who are in places of decision-making have concluded that what we need is a lot of people wearing white coats. And we send these people to them, and they figure out which pill to take at which time of the day, and they drug them. I have probably, of my 110 or 120 that I've worked with, probably have about 40 still Vietnam returnees who have been on drugs for more than 30 years with seemingly no improvement at all. Turn the horses loose with them and you'll see unbelievable improvement.
What is it? What's the key? What's the secret?
The key is trust. They don't have trust, and then they do have trust. The horse is the same. They can't trust, and then they can trust. And it's the same. Now, can that be spun round again? Of course it can. And do you have a more fragile individual in a horse that's been beaten half of his life? Of course you do. And if somebody else gives him one more whack, you're back to square one. And it's the same with the people.
And when
exactly the same.
When you start with them, when you first meet a horse or a person who needs you, do you always start at the same place? Or can you read exactly where they are and start right in on that specific place?
That's a good question, and one that is very difficult to answer because oftentimes I make mistakes in reading people. I just made a mistake this last week in reading people. A lady came to me from Brazil, and she spoke to me about abuse. She spoke to me about dysfunctional behavior, and she spoke to me about stress and the whole gamut. And so didn't I ask her, are you married? No. And is your boyfriend, do you live with your boyfriend? No. Do you have children? No. A mother? Yes. How old are you? 28. Okay. Let's get into this now. What actually happens? Well, at times I just go white hot. And like I beat up a niece of mine 2 weeks ago. What? There I was, completely the other way around, thinking she was the victim. And she came to me because she's a perpetrator. So I make mistakes all the time. Where do you start? You start with a conversation. You start just the same as if you were going to help a 25-year-old son of yours. I'm not sure you could have a 25-year-old son, but if you did have, and he came to you and said, I'm in big trouble, Mom. I need some help. You might say, well, let's fix a cup of tea here or a cup of coffee. Sit down. What's the trouble? and you'd begin to assess the trouble. And you never know where you're going to enter this thing.
And so you sit down and you fix a cup of coffee, or you find a place of it's comfortable. You're not going to have these conversations on the battlefield or
That's right.
in the abuser's home where a lot of the abuse takes place. And same thing with the animals. You create a space that is not violent and fairly comfortable. Can you do that? How do you do that? I mean, what do you see when you first arrive someplace, specifically with a horse? Can you look around at their environment and say, is this a place of comfort? Is this a place of peace? Or do I need to create a microcosm of comfort so that I can start to have this conversation with this animal?
Well, with people, I like to get in a natural area where it can be outside, or like I've got a little log cabin we go to, and tree squirrels outside up in the trees and deer walking by. And I mean, I'm telling you seriously, there is not a time where the deer aren't walking by and the tree squirrels aren't in the trees. They're there. And there's no phone in there. There's no computer in there. And we just sit and get started that way. Or we have a park area here on the farm, and we go there, picnic table kind of thing, and sit down where they can see clearly in all directions. It's important. Horses need that.
To see what's coming.
A round pen is great because they can cancel out outside that round pen, and they feel safe. And they don't have a corner to get hemmed up in. It's a fantastic place. And I don't chase them. That is a fallacy. I don't chase them. I don't drive stress up. Remember that we do this because adrenaline down, learning up. Adrenaline up, learning down. So it goes both ways, my learning and their learning. Got to get the adrenaline down. And people who would criticize my work saying it's stressful have not been there. They haven't tried it. It's adrenaline down. They say, "Oh, that dually halter, it's cruel, it's painful." What? When I put the dually halter on and go to work with a horse that's really frightened and stressed, their adrenaline goes down. Their heart rate goes down, not up. If it went up, I'd burn the thing up.
Well, that's your message. I mean, that's your whole approach, isn't it? Is nonviolence, non-anxiety producing.
Yeah,
work.
And with the dually halter, see, I don't know if have you used one?
I have not, but I've seen them in action.
Okay. The dually halter allows the horse to make a mistake, and he goes into it and resists it, and then as soon as he gets cooperative toward it, it gets bigger and more comfortable. So he runs the show. He runs the show. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon he says, "Oh, if I just relax and come off this, cooperate with it, my adrenaline falls, my pulse rate falls, I'm more comfortable, and we can start to learn." But if I'm panicked and I'm running around here, and then a man recently was doing a demonstration in Europe, and he was the leader of a large organization, and he brought a horse with bad ground manners in, and then took out a whip and started whipping the horse across the front legs. And pretty soon he lost the horse. The horse ran away, and they caught him, and he continued to whip him, and he lost him again. And this guy advocates for nonviolence, too. And then his partner went outside and caught him and put a shiftney bit on him. And then started, with the chain, started yanking this shiftney bit until the horse was so sore of his mouth that he stood there, and then they would use the whip across his legs every time he was negative. Well, I mean, where would his adrenaline be? Where would his heart rate be? A whip is our enemy, not our friend. And yet, we still sell more whips than any other piece of equipment in the tack shops of the world.
It's true.
That's true. One of my goals is to have it fall, below the saddle pad or something like that.
Well, I have this image now in my mind of you standing there and watching this fellow take the whip to the horse's legs. How do you have to sort of let these people make some mistakes because
Absolutely.
you have to see it happen. How do you, I don't want to say control yourself, but over time, I'm sure you've developed ways to then communicate or teach these people without becoming angry yourself.
Yeah, Helene, I believe sincerely, and you could put a polygraph machine on me. I believe sincerely that I have seen more abuse to horses than any other human being on earth. And it started when I was 2, 3, and 4 years of age, and that same abuse was used on me. And then there was a demand for me to use that abuse on horses, which I did. I did so because if I didn't, it was coming my way. And I feel sad. I feel sorry for the horses. I feel sorry for the person. They're victims too. The people are victims too. They couldn't act that way if they hadn't had violence wreaked on them at some point in their life.
And when you finally get to that point where you can say to them, it doesn't have to be this way, do they relax into that statement?
No.
Do they
No.
feel like, oh, good?
No. When you say they, I guess you mean the majority of them. And if I get 2 or 3 in 100, I'm happy. At 4:00 this afternoon, I have a call to make offshore to a man who has called himself a scientist. He's called himself an expert. His card is about training horses. He has a large following, and he's been ultra negative to me for about 12 years now. And recently, he's come round, and he wants to have a conversation of amelioration with me, and I want to invite him here, expense-free, to spend a week with him, showing him the things that I do and teaching them how to do the things that I do so that he can literally experience them before he criticizes them. What he does is horrific. He's no hand. He's horrible with a horse. And a teacher, a professor in a university of equine sciences. So, and there's a lot of those now, and a lot of them are misled. A lot of them. And many of them want to go against me because if you knock down the tall poppy, you're bigger yourself somehow.
Right. But when they do finally see and experience, do you see the light bulb go off? Are they, do they get it?
Helene, you do once in a while.
Yeah.
But not with everybody.
Really?
Not at all.
You really have people walk away from time with you or a clinic and they just still don't feel it?
Yes, it's getting fewer.
Okay.
But they're still there.
I mean, I guess I'm growing up in a horse generation where it's a no-brainer. The old ways they're old, and this is, this is the right way.
Yeah, but there are those out there, and some highly placed clinicians that have figured out a better way to show and say, this is a new way, and it's the old way.
And it's the old way.
They have morphed it into their own shape, and people think they're doing a better way and a more modern way, when actually they're doing the exact same thing. There is one clinician going around, for instance, who has learned how to use a long lead rope on the horse's halter, and he rolls an ocean wave in that lead rope that travels, I don't know, about 150 miles an hour up that rope. And then he knows just how to pull it so that it slaps the horse across the head, circles the eye, and sometimes hits the eye. Mm-hmm. And I have watched audiences accept that. They don't see it. They don't know it's happening. And he gets them through fear to do what he wants them to do. And it's amazing how he stays popular.
People will believe anything, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, he covers it well. And it's a little bit like the guy that makes the dime disappear.
Right.
You know, you didn't see where it went. And so he does a pretty good job. I have a student in Austria that came to me, and he wanted to be a circus trainer. He wants to be a circus trainer. He's a young guy, 23, 24 years old. And I found a super talented young man around a horse. He's pretty darn good. But he was doing pretty typical circus training things with a whip. And he said, you know, I'd love to become a more modern trainer. I'd love to work in something more closely connected to your genre. And I said, okay, I'll help you do that. But I won't be able to teach certain things that you are using as tricks in your circus because it can't be done other than with a whip. He said, well, I'll eliminate those. I said, okay, then your assignment is to go home and learn how to train these horses without causing any pain. And if you can do it, I will support you in the act of training horses for circuses. And he's done it. He has done it. I've seen it. It's unbelievable. I put him on my online university. His first name is Florian. And very few human beings can say his last name, so I won't even try to do it. Oberleithauser or something like that. But it's unbelievable. And he smiles more. He's happier with himself. And his horses are operating with him with their ears up, not flat back on their necks like you see in the circus so much, not resenting everything that happens. And these guys that go out there with Liberty horses, and the horses are running around the arena, they're rolling and everything, and everybody has a smile on their face. And the guy's out in the middle of the arena, and then suddenly he reaches down and picks up this long lunge whip. And all the horses come running to him and stand up on their hind legs. And people go, wow, that's unbelievable. Well, how do you think he achieved that? It's called whip breaking. It was going on in the 30s, in the 20s. In Hungary, they had circuses with that kind of thing 200 years ago. So, you know, we have to take a hard look at what's happening and cause people to jump. They make me jump through the hoops, and I don't mind it.
Yes, it's not you are at times still swimming upstream.
Oh, yeah. Sure I am. But I don't mind that, and I'm getting better. I'm still learning. I've learned a lot of things recently that are helping me. I'm the Wilbur Wright of the horse industry, and he just got it to barely lift off the ground. Yeah. You know, 67 years later, we went to the moon. That's what I want to see for the horse industry. I don't want people to do what I do, and I don't want anybody to be as good as I am. I want them all to be better, a lot better.
How do you feel about the term natural horsemanship?
Well, there is no such thing. It's an oxymoron. So how do I feel about it? I don't mind it because it kind of makes people feel good to say it. But there is no such thing as natural horsemanship. What is natural for a horse? What is natural for a horse?
Plenty of things, but nothing that I do in my barn.
No, but there's very few things natural for a horse. In fact, if you just say graze in a field where they can see a mile in every direction, that's pretty much the end of it. That's natural.
Right.
Live in a herd, you could say. You could say to have only two goals in life, one to reproduce and the other to survive. And that's it. That's natural horsemanship. Not to touch them. How long did horses live when there were no human beings on Earth? 47 million years. With no human beings on Earth. So nobody was training them to do anything. That's what's natural. Well, is that a good thing? No. Why isn't it a good thing? It's not a good thing because if we resorted to that, we just kill them all because they eat the grass that the deer eat and the elk eat, and they get in our way and break our fences and everything, and there's no use for them.
Do you think then that the term has opened up the opportunity for nonviolent training? I mean, even though it may be a misnomer, do you think that people have, because so many people have embraced the term, even though they might not even know what it means exactly, or that it means it's meaningless, do you think that it's opened up the way a little bit for you?
I hope so, and if it has, I'm fine with it. Horse whisperer. I don't whisper to horses. I don't believe that there is anybody that whispers to horses, or that if they do, it isn't effective. What do they whisper in? Russian or Chinese or English? There's no whisperers. But if it helps people feel that we can move to a better place where horses can be given a chance to want to do what we're doing instead of being forced to do what we're doing, then I'm all for it. Call me a horse whisperer all you want, if that's what it does, even if I don't whisper.
Right, whatever you call it, as long as it gets the job done.
Yeah.
Do you there's so much that you're involved in. Like you said, you've seen pretty much all of it. Are you still surprised? Not necessarily by the horrors that are out there, because I think unfortunately, it's the dark side of our humanity. We can be very horrific. Are you still surprised by your ability to make change or your ability to impact someone else's life?
No. I guess Alicia Watkins surprised me when she got, it was great, when she got approved to go to Harvard School of Psychology. There was a bit of a surprise there, and it does at times amaze me how quickly I can get things done if I get it right. But it's very hard to be surprised anymore at the negative things that humans do. Although in Brazil last year, when the audience all hooted and hollered and raised their fists when the horse fell down, that really surprised me, because I didn't think it was that culturally implanted or imprinted in their culture. My translator left me at that stage and went away. It was a lady translator that they had, and it's Portuguese down there, so it's very difficult for me. But I couldn't find her, and she couldn't take it, and she was waiting out behind the stands where the audience was sitting. So I would have expected more of their people to do that, but it was a big show with a lot of horse people there, and I was told that it was all the people coming in from the horse farms around that were doing the whooping and hollering. I don't know. There's very little that surprises me anymore in both directions, really.
Mm. Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I want to ask you a couple of questions about Shy Boy.
Good.
Yeah, I know that was probably, I don't know, I'm going to assume that your adventures with Shy Boy was a big learning moment for you when you brought him back to where he came from.
Oh, gosh, yes. It was a learning moment, but, more than a learning moment, it was a moment of validation because I'd already done it. And I knew it was possible. But what I didn't know is it possible every time? And am I going to fail dismally here just when the cameras are rolling, Because those things can happen without any question. They can happen, and you never know. You cannot be arrogant enough to assume that every time you walk in that pen, things are going to go exactly like you planned. They will humble you. And I don't mind that challenge, but it's scary. But when Shy Boy came back to me, did join up in the wild, bang on the 24 hours that I predicted, It was some kind of good feeling, I have to tell you. And once he did join up, the rest of the world might not have known that he was going to accept the saddle right away and the rider right away and the bit and all of that, but I did. I know how that goes, and that is 100%. And, you know, I mean, they killed 2 rattlesnakes during the course of that. What if a rattlesnake had bitten him or bitten me? That shoot was over. He met a couple of fences on that 42,000 acres. What if he'd have jumped through the barbed wire fence? It could have happened, you know,
right.
And it would really humble you. It didn't happen. And he's a superstar, and he has a place to be buried here. And now we're in a race, Helene. Shy Boy and me. Did you know that?
I did not. Tell me about the race.
Well, we're about the same age. And now it's, do his bones, a bit of his bones, go in my grave, or a bit of my bones go in his grave? Who's going to go to the grave first? And so keep listening and watching, because Shy Boy and I are in a race. I want to be around. I want to be around to say goodbye to him.
Well, I think you guys will keep each other going, probably longer, because you know each other, because you have one another in your life.
Longer is a good word, but there's an end to longer, too.
There is. There is.
Yeah. We are mortals.
We are. We are. But we're blessed. I mean, my personal feeling is that our horses and the animals that we share our world with are ambassadors from a better place. And through their simplicity, they can teach us to be a little bit more real. You know, there's a truth, I think, in human beings that is buried under so
Wow, I'm listening to you, Helene, and I'm thinking you need to give us a guest lecture spot on our online university.
Well, it's, you know, I spend a lot of time thinking about this because there's so many people, there's so many different reasons why people engage with horses. There's so many different. They need to conquer something. They need a relationship. I mean, you know all this. They just want to go out and yahoo. They like speed, and you know, some of us actually sit down and think about, well, why am I here? Why do I do this? What is the root cause of my relationship with this horse? And therefore, I think once you understand that reason and your motivations, you can have a better relationship and better communication, and both of you can be happier.
Yeah, and through education, I think we can make a lot more of those thinkers than we do those yippers, you know. I mean, even somebody yipping, that's okay, right, so long as they stop in the evening and think about what was so much fun that they yipped about. Right,
and that was when Glenn the Geek first said, Helena, you have a chance to talk to Monty. The first question that came to my mind was, what's your motivation? What's your root passion? What keeps you going out every morning and putting your hand on a horse's neck?
Yeah.
What gets you up every morning? Why are you there with them?
I think my critics. It's the people that are against me. And I think about them through the night. And I get up in the morning and I say, I got to show them. I got to prove my worth. I've got to get better. I've got to up the bar. It's not fair to go away and leave them with some of these positions they have and some of these criticisms they have. It's my critics. They're my best friends.
Yes.
Those people that just love me and just come and say, "Oh, Monty Roberts, oh, wonderful! I love everything you do." It's like, okay, that's cool. Already got them though. They're along with me. That's not the challenge. Now I want to get better for them too, and I don't mean to minimize that. But it's the critics that keep you putting those 2 feet on the floor and saying, "I got to keep going." Man, they're catching up. You know. It really does stimulate me, and I can't wait for this call this afternoon with this man. I don't think he's a bad guy at all. I think he's misled in so many ways, and I think he's been unfair in many ways, but I don't think he's all bad. So he's got me thinking. And I'm talking to a friend now, already thinking about this guy that's not my friend at the moment. But I bet you he will be eventually. I just have a strong feeling.
I have a funny feeling that's true. Do you get a chance to ride much at all these days? You're busy.
Not as much as I would like. I'm home 50 days out of the year.
Oh, boy.
And I do ride on the road a little bit. But at 77, you don't go around stepping on every horse that's on offer, you know?
No, gosh, no. I don't do it at 44.
and with a bad back that they said I would never ride with, it's very difficult. They said one good buck off and I probably would be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. My spinal cord is so damaged. But I ride when I'm here, and I'm going to ride today, and I have this incredible horse called Chrome that gave my class this past week a world-level demonstration, both working a cow and reining. And it's so much fun, really a lot of fun. I'm going to work with a couple of horses in the round pen today and Chrome and make that other call and do a bunch of emails and all of that other stuff that we have to do. But, yeah, I just don't have enough time in a day to get it all done, but I'm loving every minute of trying to get it done.
That's the best part. That's the best part. Well, you know, I hope someday, if I'm out on the West Coast again, to be able to stop by and see Flag Is Up Farm in person. It sounds like you've created just that place of comfort.
It's a mecca. It's a paradise.
Yeah, that's a happy place.
You'll think those words when you're here. It really is rounding into what I'd always hoped it to be.
If you could, we have, the listeners for today's show, there may be a few out there who are not Monty followers. There may be, or it could be the choir, plenty of your fans. What do you want to leave? What message do you want to get across today?
I want to leave the message that violence is never the answer.
Of any kind.
Violence is always for the violator and never for the victim. No one of us was born with the right to say, you must, or I'll hurt you to any other creature, animal or human. My goal is to leave the world a better place than I found it, for horses and for people too.
Well, I think you are well on your way to that goal. And you can't see me on the other end of this microphone, but I am smiling with my eyes because I'm hopeful. I am hopeful that this message will really sink in, even if it's to just one more person today. Then that
you come out to this farm and we'll sit down in my log cabin and we'll do a radio show for you from right here, and you can express to them.
Deer and squirrel trotting about.
They'll be there. They will be there.
Monty, thank you so very much for spending time with me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Again, my deepest thanks to Monty Roberts. We will be back again on Equestrian Legends with another great legend. See you then.